I'm not gonna be able to do the rest of the review with this thing on. Holy Jesus. Hey everyone, welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, and welcome to the final part of the first annual Halloween special. And happy Halloween to every single one of you. Now, as I kind of hinted at in the previous if you guys follow me on Instagram and Facebook, which will be down in the description below, you guys may have figured out that I was gonna cover certain film on Halloween. And as you guys can tell, my attire and the mask and the knife, which, by the way, this thing isn't real. It's literally just foam. Like, you literally see, I don't know how well it's gonna capture on camera, but you can literally see that the end is literally chipping off, and I literally painted this with a silver Sharpie. But anyway, yes, as you guys can tell, my attire. We are gonna be talking about John Carpenter's Halloween, released in 1978. Now, I just want to get this over really quick. I now this was my first time seeing this movie, and I loved it. Do I think it's the best horror movie? No. Do I think it's one of the best? Yep. Do I? And obviously, I guess it's not as good as The Thing, but still a really good horror movie. Um, but yeah. So Michael Myers, I've known ever since really, um, ever since I really started getting into horror movies. He's been kind of like a um like a mainstay in the horror series, like, or the horror genre, like next to like Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and like Chucky. All those mainstays you get right dab in the middle, the mainstay of the slasher genre, Michael Myers. Granted, Leatherface kind of did it first, but it was kind of like not really people like recognize Leatherface as much as Michael Myers for inventing the slasher genre. Um, but anyway, let's get on to the some of the details. So this was released on October 21st or 25th of 1978, and it had a budget of $325,000, and domestically it made 47 million, and worldwide it made 70 million, which made this a huge success, and one of the most one of the best independent movies to be released. Um, and obviously this was directed by John Carpenter, which he after before Halloween he just came off of the back of Assault on Precinct 13, which did really well at the box office, but not as good as Halloween. But anyway, um, let's get on to that plot. So, on a cold Halloween in 1963, 6-year-old Michael Myers brutally murders his 17-year-old sister, Judith Myers, and he was sentenced and locked away for 15 years. But on October 31st of 1978, while being transferred for a court date, a 21-year-old Michael Myers 21-year-old Michael Myers steals a car and escapes to Haddonfield, Illinois, where he looks for his next victims. Now, like I said, this is a mainstay in the horror genre, and like really, who does not know like Michael Myers? Like, who does not know like who this guy is? Like, he's a mainstay in the horror genre. Again, like compared like going on along with like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, um, and you know, like I think he's honestly probably the best out of like the main core slasher film, or slasher mainstays of the horror genre. Granted, Chucky and Freddy Krueger have their quips. Uh, like Jason Voorhees is basically silent along with Leatherface, but he screams like most of the time, so really like it doesn't really matter. And Pinhead is basically just spouts off quotes about hell. So, um, yeah, and I love this movie. Uh, I've already mentioned it, but like, I think it's one of the best horror movies. But let's go over the cast. So we have, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. This was her first movie role, and surprisingly, like Sigourney Weaver in Alien, she does a very good performance. She would obviously go on to be in Halloween 2, um, and have future roles in Halloween movies, including H2O, Resurrection, and the new 2018 film, and obviously the new upcoming Halloween Kills. But outside of Halloween, the Halloween franchise, the only thing I really recognize, not Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis from was True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is basically an action comedy film, and it's amazing. Um, we have the fantastic Donald Pleasance as Dr. Samuel Loomis. Sorry. Um, really, before this, his most recognized role was Blofeld in You Only Live Twice, which is surprisingly actually one of my preferred Bond films. You can see him right there on this flip out. There he is right there as Gustavo Blofeld. Um, but yeah, I think this is probably his best role, and obviously he would obviously again go on to Halloween 2, but he would also appear in Halloween 4, 5, and 6. With Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers being his final movie role. Unfortunately. Because they were going to do, not really to get into the whole fiasco about, uh, like the whole speculation about the whole death and stuff like that. But to really quickly sum it up, that the original cut of Halloween 6, the like the company that had it at the time of making Halloween 6 didn't like it, so they were like, okay, we just need to go off and add new scenes. But unfortunately, right before they went off and went to reshoot the new scenes, Donald Pleasance unfortunately passed away at this point. At that point, so they couldn't really reshoot anything with him because obviously he was no longer with us. Um, but I think if you say Donald Pleasance, the first thing that comes up is Dr. Loomis, because obviously Dr. Loomis popping up in the most amount of films out of any film that Donald Pleasance has appeared in, especially with what 5 films under his belt, with in terms of the Halloween franchise. Um, we have obviously Nick Castle as Michael Myers, who would actually later on and go and direct films including The Last Starfighter. Um, Obviously, he doesn't talk in the movie because he's obviously Michael Myers. Um, but I think he does a very good performance as Michael Myers. Obviously, there was different people cast as Michael Myers in future installments, kind of like Jason Voorhees with the Friday the 13th series. Is that every time he pops up in a new film, they always recast him. Um, and I think that um, I think Nick Castle is honestly my favorite Michael Myers. Um, Obviously because he's the original, so obviously everyone had to kind of like what's the word? They had to like live up to his potential or to his like status as like the best Michael Myers. But also like he brought so much to the role that like really no one after him could compete with it. Um, we have PJ Souls as Linda Van der Lock or Clock. Uh, and I believe she is the girl that basically says totally way too much. Um, it literally gets to the point where it's just like oh, it's so annoying, like to the point where it's just like oh my god, shut up. Um, we have Nancy Kales as Anna Brackett, who is, I mean like Linda and Annie are friends to Lori. But I think um Annie was like the closer friend than Linda, probably because she said totally way too much. um, but um, yeah, it basically um she does fine, and obviously before Halloween she did Assault on Precinct 13, and I think she'll go on to star in some future John Carpenter productions, including Halloween 2, but I'll get to that when I discuss Halloween 2 later tonight, for, this year's Halloween. Um, we have Charles Cyphers, I believe that's how you say his last name, as Sheriff Lee Brackett, who is the father to Annie Brackett, which I just talked about. He does a very good performance in this movie, even though I feel like they should have added like one or two more scenes with him. Because honestly, he just feels like a very side character. Like, he barely pops up in the movie. And then you're like, in the scenes, because like his scenes are so sporadic that you like the first time you see him, it's like, oh, that's the sheriff. And then like every time he pops up, he's like, oh, you're always like, oh, I forgot about him being in the movie. Not saying that his performance was bad, like, not at all. But I just feel like they should have added like a one or two more scenes with him to kind of make it more noticeable that he is like that he's kind of like a main part of the movie. Um, we have Kylie Richards and Brian Andrews as Lindsay Wallace and Tommy Doyle, respectively. Now Lindsay is the girl that Annie is babysitting, and Tommy is the kid that Laurie is babysitting. Um, Lindsay, I don't think she pops up in any of the future sequels. She's kind of just like in the movie, like in this movie solely. But there is, not again, it's like too much spoiler territory for Halloween 2. But yeah, in Halloween 2, it recaps the ending to this film, and it shows Laurie. It's like a different version of the take where Laurie's like near the end of the film, where Laurie's telling them to like run and get some help. So it shows a different take of that. But yeah, besides that scene at the beginning of Halloween 2, I don't think she appears in any of the other sequels. Tommy Doyle, on the other hand, besides obviously appearing in the intro of Halloween 2, would be one of the main characters in the dreadful Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Will I be talking about that in a future Halloween special? Yes, because I want to do all of the Halloween movies for each year. Um, but yeah. So anyway, we have Nancy Stevens or Steffens as Marion Chambers, who would go on again to star in not only Halloween 2, but also in Halloween H2O, which is one of the better sequels in my opinion. Um, and she literally only has like one scene in this whole movie, and that's near the beginning. And then she kind of has a bigger role in the second film, which again I will be talking about later on when I do the review of Halloween 2. Um, but um, but yeah. And then finally we have Tony Moran as Michael Myers. Now you guys may be asking, well, wait a minute, I thought you said that Nick Castle played Michael Myers, and you are correct about that. Nick Castle played the majority of Michael Myers. Like all the scenes that you see him walking around and like trying to attack, like like different characters and stuff like that. That's Nick Castle. There's a total, I believe, of 4 separate actors in this movie that played Michael Myers. There's Nick Castle, which we already talked about. There's Tony Moran, who is Michael Myers in the final confrontation between Laurie and Michael, when Laurie pulls the mask off of Michael, and you see his face for like a split second, or like for a second or two. That's Tony Moran. Uh, we have also the producer Tommy Lee Wallace, who was the kind of like the stunts version of well, not really the stunts guy for Michael Myers, but he's the one that you see like again, like when right before Laurie goes into the house that she was babysitting in for the final battle, she goes over to the house that Annie was babysitting in, and she tries to escape and locks one of the doors. And you see Michael Myers trying to like punching his way through the door. That's Tommy Lee Wallace. And then finally we have the kid version of Michael Myers, which I forgot the actor's name. But yeah, he popped up in the beginning scene, like which is the initial scene from 1963 Halloween. Um, but but yeah, there was four main actors playing Michael Myers in this movie. Uh, I think for I think for Halloween 2 there was only one person. I know for Halloween 4 and 6 they cast one guy, but then fired him and they cast another guy in his place. Uh, I'm not sure about 5, and I believe H2O and Resurrection um are had one guy as Michael Myers. I know that the two Rob Zombie movies, or the Rob Zombie remakes of Halloween 1 and 2, there was one guy from that. And for 2018's Halloween, there was, I believe, one guy for that. And I believe there will be one guy playing Michael Myers for the upcoming Halloween Kills. Um, Before we go on to favorite scenes, and the composer and my final rating for the film, I'm gonna be mentioning the fun fact. Um, and then there was actually a television version of not only this film but also Halloween 2. Now, unfortunately, with the release that I currently have of Halloween, it doesn't actually come with the full TV version, but it does have the scenes that were a part of the television version as a special feature. So, after I talk about the fun facts that I have, I will be talking about the differences, the new scenes that were added to this TV version of Halloween. Then we're gonna go on to my favorite scenes. We're gonna be talking about the music, and then my final thoughts on the movie. All right, so now I'm gonna be talking about the fun facts that I have for this movie. Um, so fun fact is that the movie that Tommy and Laurie are watching on the TV is The Thing from Another World from 1951, which is kind of funny considering that John Carpenter would later go on and do the remake of The Thing after he did Halloween 2. Um, which, if you guys haven't watched my Thing review, it's currently up on my channel. It's been up on my channel. It's currently one of my most successful reviews, which I do appreciate. So there will be like an end card um, at the end of this review for so that you can subscribe to my channel, but also check out not only my Alien review, which was my most recent one, but also the Thing review. But anyway, um, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny that John Carpenter has stated that he's always been a fan of the 1931 version of the Thing, or the 1951 version. I don't know if I said 31. But he knew that like it took drastic changes from the book, so he wanted to make a more faithful version to the original source novel than the original 51 version did, and that's why he made The Thing from 1982, which has now become my favorite horror movie of all time, and it still is. But I do think that Halloween is a very, very close second. Um, but now I'm really gonna be quickly talking about the additional scenes that were added to this TV version of Halloween. Um, so in 19, to really quickly cover the backstory of what this TV version was, is that in 1980, the TV rights for Halloween were sold to NBC. Um, and to fill up the 2 hour time slot, John Carpenter went and did and added additional scenes to the film while during production of Halloween 2. Um, um, Surprisingly, there's not as many scenes as I thought there was going to be. Like kind of like with the Alien director's cut version, where there was like 10 or like 9, like 5 to 10 different scenes that were added to this director's cut. But with this TV version of Halloween, there was only four. There was only four additional scenes, and I believe also because of um, TV restrictions back then, you obviously couldn't show blood, even though there wasn't actually very that much blood in the film. It was more the sequel that added more blood. Um, but again, I'll get to that later on. But I think there was obviously with the pen and scan screen. I think you couldn't really show, or you like it didn't pop up with the nudity that was in the film, which actually wasn't that much, considering that this was a slasher movie. Not to sound a little bit weird and stuff like that with the whole like nudity thing, but I think there was only like one pair of boobs in this movie, which is very surprising for a slasher flick. Um, but um, but yeah, let's really quickly go over the scenes that were added to this television version of Halloween. So the first one is Loomis's warning, which is basically him warning like the doctors at Smith's Grove to not let him out, cause like he's a psycho, like he's gonna go and kill everyone, and the doctors ultimately don't listen to him, and he goes up, and then he just walks out. The next scene, which is kind of a continuation of the first scene that I talked about, is Loomis versus young Michael, which isn't really like a confrontation per se, but it's just a short little nice scene, or a scene where Loomis goes up to Michael's room, and um he just like one of the best Dr. Loomis lines that I've ever heard is him going that he may have fooled them, but you didn't fool me, Michael. And I'm like, oh, that is so good. That's like pure Dr. Loomis. Um, and I'm just like, I really wish they could have just kept that scene in, like the whole like the board not believing them, because I think that's really the only necessary scene, or the only scene that was added to this television version that could have been added back into the theatrical version and not be that big of a like that bad of a change. As with these other two changes, they don't really add anything to the story, and like don't really think I don't think they should really be in the film itself. This next additional scene is Michael's room, which is basically Dr. Loomis coming in after um, Michael has traveled to Haddonfield, and they see it. He comes into the room, and the room is trashed. Like there's like ripped paint off of the wall. There's like tables flipped everywhere. Paper is all over the place, and one of the doctors goes up to the door and closes it, and it says "sister," um, which I guess kind of spoilers for this part. I mean, granted, all of my movie reviews are technically spoilers, so technically you shouldn't really be watching any of them if you haven't seen any of these. Um, but if you guys either have seen the movie already or just don't care about spoilers, just keep on watching. But obviously in Halloween 2, they mention the whole fact about Laurie being Michael Myers' sister. Um, which is Michael's second sister, because he obviously killed Judith in this film, and now Laurie is his second sister. So now that's why he's going after her in the rest of the series. Um, but yeah, that scene honestly could just be cut out, or like it doesn't need to be in the film, because honestly, it kind of ruins the whole surprise in the second film. About the whole Laurie being Michael Myers' sister. But um, that's how you know, that's how movies are. They just like to screw continuity up. That's more the later sequels, not necessarily Halloween 2, but you get what I mean. And the final scene that was added to this television version was Linda coming over to Laurie's house and saying that, and like she thinks that she's being followed. And they call Annie and they start, chatting a bit, and then they bring the hang up, and basically the scene ends. You could tell that this was obviously filmed right around the time they did Halloween 2, because Laurie has a shower, like a towel over her head that looks like she just took a shower, but that's really just to hide up the fact that she had shorter hair by this time, and um not the fact that she is full on just like um she has like the original hair and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, again, like with the previous scene that I talked about, this one really doesn't need to be added because unlike where the previous scene that kind of ruined something that would happen in a future film, this one is just like it doesn't need to be in the film. Um, or like it doesn't really add anything. It doesn't improve the pace. In fact, I actually think it slows down the pace a bit. Um, and I just like, well, just keep on going with the rest of the movie because honestly, this really doesn't do anything. And that's it for really the television changes between the theatrical and the television version. And now we're gonna be talking about my favorite scenes. Now, um, well, actually, we're gonna cut really quick, and then I'm gonna be talking about my favorite scenes. All right, welcome back. Um, and now we're gonna be talking about my favorite scenes. Um, Now my first favorite scene would honestly have to be the first kind of stalking of Laurie from Michael Myers. Um, because I just like the atmosphere and the soundtrack, which I'll again get to after I talk about my favorite scenes. But the soundtrack really emphasizes that Michael Myers is stalking her. And I just really like it. It's like the initial kind of like, okay, this is Halloween. This is like this is good. My second favorite scene would honestly have to be um. Oh, that's a hard one. Like honestly, trying to choose favorite scenes because it's like the whole movie is like really good. So it's like trying to choose like favorite scenes is like very difficult. But um, honestly, I just have to choose honestly all the deaths. Well, all the on-screen deaths, I should say. Because the first victim is, I think well, yeah, the first victim is Judith Myers. And the second victim is like a mechanic, where he gets like obviously the suit from, and then it is a dog, and then the last three are the actual like people killing, and those are my favorite scenes because honestly, it's Michael doing what he does best, and it's killing people. But if I had to choose my personal favorite, it would probably be because it's Annie and then Bob, which is Linda's boyfriend, and then Linda herself, and then yeah. So I think my personal favorite out of those three is Bob. Like everyone's gonna choose Bob because like the suspense is like building up where it's like okay the door slightly opens after like he's going to get the beer and then from the fridge, and you see the back door slightly open, and he closes it and he's like Annie, and then he closes it. He goes to one cabinet, opens it. There's nothing there. And he turns around and there's a door. And he's like, "All right, come on out." And he opens it, and then boom, Michael Myers just pops out, and he's like, he just grabs him by the throat, and obviously Bob's trying to get out of it, and he just lifts him up, and he just holds up, like, ah, and I dropped my foam knife, but yeah, he just picks him up, raises up the knife, and then sticks him to the wall, and then the famous Michael Myers just like a little head tilt, then goes on to Linda. But that's probably my favorite kill out of the whole movie. Um, but if I had to choose, and then my final favorite scene would honestly just be the whole confrontation in the end, in the third act, between Michael Myers and Laurie, because she honestly kicks the shit out of Michael. Um, she I think she stabs him first with like a needle, like not like an actual like needle, but it's like a threading needle, like to the neck, and then she she goes into a closet and then pokes him, like breaks off like a hanger, like a metal hanger, pokes him, and he drops like he pokes him in the face. He's like ah fuck, and then he drops the knife, grabs the knife, and he just and then obviously he goes down. Um, and then Dr. Loomis shows up, and then the final struggle, which I did talk about earlier, between like when Michael Myers is choking her, and then she rips the mask off his face, and then it comes to Tony Moran, and Dr. Loomis comes up and then just shoots him, and then he comes around the corner. Michael's just standing there, and it's like, and then just falls on the floor, and he just sits there, and I mean, yeah, I did say spoilers earlier, but like now it's like, okay, spoilers for this part, like absolute spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, most likely you should just go and watch the movie. And if you already have seen the movie or you just don't care, here's the big twist of the movie if you guys don't already know. The big twist of the movie is that after Dr. Loomis shoots him 6 times and Laurie asks the big question, was that the boogeyman? Dr. Loomis says yes, goes over to the window, looks out, and Michael Myers is gone. And it's just absolute sequel bait. And you just hear the theme just right then. And it's like Michael Myers is still out there somewhere. And that's it. That's really the whole film. Um and yeah, and that would be my final favorite scene is the final like the final battle between Laurie and Michael. Um And really quickly before I get on to my rating for the film, I want to really talk about the score. The score was done by John Carpenter, who actually does a lot of movies that he does. He does the score for them, and for this film, it is absolutely fantastic. Um, if you guys could try and find maybe I think there is a 20th anniversary CD out there, along with the original uh, CD release. But for some reason on like streaming services, they only have the original, like the first actual CD release and not the 20th anniversary edition. I think. Um, but but yeah, if you guys can try and find the score somewhere, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best horror scores ever compared to and like going along with like some of the Nightmare scores like 1, 3, Freddy's Dead, and New Nightmare. Um, and obviously some of the Hellraiser films. But like this is one of the best scores ever made. Um, and one of the best John Carpenter scores ever made. Um, and yeah, so that's really all I gotta say about this film. Overall, I think this is a really good horror flick, one of the best ever made. Do I think it's the best? As you guys could tell by the beginning of the video, I don't think it is the best. I still think that The Thing is my personal favorite horror movie, but this is really up there. Probably like my second or third like my second favorite horror movie ever made. Um, but Halloween isn't over yet. Stay tuned for later on tonight where I'm gonna be reviewing Halloween 2. Now, I haven't seen either of them yet, so this set a bar really high. And I'm not gonna expect that Halloween 2 is gonna be as good as this one, but I still have pretty good hopes that this one will at least be pretty good. So, anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for later on tonight, where I'm gonna be talking about Halloween 2. And happy Halloween. Live long and prosper. Out.